Well, hello friends, and welcome to part 2 of our hardcore Nuzlocke of Storm Silver using only normal type Pokemon. Last time we became the champions of the Johto region, and as mentioned at the end of that video, because of real life and scheduling and summer, we weren't able to complete this in one run. Typically, the events of Kanto and Heart Gold and Soul Silver are very quick. You can go into Vermilion, go up to Saffron, go to any of the branching towns, battle all of the different gym leaders. The only storyline stuff is the machine part in Misty's gym. After that, it's really not that hard to get to Blue, which is probably the only challenge before Red. In this game, Storm Silver, things are very, very different. It's not so sporadic, it is a much more linear progression where we're forced to go to Pewter. We're going to be forced to go through places like Mount Moon, Rock Tunnel. We even have to crawl through Seafoam Islands to get to Blaine, which is crazy. They lock down Saffron because of the power outage. They lock down heading to Viridian from Pewter because of events happening in the Viridian Forest. There's just a bunch of roadblocks forcing you to go a specific way. It's going to make things much more difficult for progression. I did get the events of Kanto all recorded, but the problem is the voiceover, the editing it all together, we would have had a lull in video, and as I mentioned before, it would have been a very long video, which I think a lot of you wouldn't have minded, but that 1 week miss is what I don't want. I don't want lulls in videos, so we're trying to do this correctly, and also breaking this up into 2 parts is beneficial to me because I can do these real life events and spend a little bit more time on the next video after this run rather than getting it rushed. And if I would have stayed in this rushed progression, we would have ultimately got behind on a video, and we don't want to do that. Now, whilst we're here in Johto, I am going to head to the 5th floor of the department store and pick up the TM4 Thunder, as I have a plan for a future battle. The battle frontier is open, and we've already spent some time grinding there, so there's really not much else to do but jump on the boat and head to Kanto. Now, typically walking across this bridge, it's a wave of nostalgia, but at this point there is no time for nostalgia as we have a long road ahead of us to get through the 8 gyms of Kanto and ultimately take on Red atop of Mount Silver. This is going to be quite the battle going forward, but I think we can do it. As mentioned before, we are forced to go to Pewter City. It's pretty neat to see the Snorlax just kind of moved, so we can get through Diglett's Tunnel no problem. Now, Brock is up first for the Gym Leader Challenge in this run, and we have Mongoose with Choice Band and Close Combat. We should be able to knock out the first 5 Pokemon with Close Combat, leaving only his Onix to be a little bit problematic. Most of these Pokemon are different for Brock. The Sudowoodo and the Relicanth, really nice to see the change in teams, super cool. Unfortunately, we don't get to see a moveset because we just one-shot, but I'd rather one-shot than be one-shot. Kabutops doesn't have Aqua Jet, so we can easily take it out. The minus to defense and special defense is getting scary as we stack up to -5 by the time the Golem goes down. Onix, the reason it is a problem is because it has a held Focus Sash. So since it has that, we are going to swap into Bulldog. Bulldog gets off an Intimidate as it swaps in, and we get hit with a Stone Edge on the swap in that does a decent amount of damage. Brick Break takes Onix to about half, and then we get hit with another Stone Edge down to 50 HP. An Earthquake from there finishes off Brock, winning us our first Kanto Gym Badge. As mentioned before, we're forced into Mount Moon, so we're forced into the rival battle with Algo, and this is the last time we are going to see him. Mongoose one-shots Honchkrow with an Ice Punch, very nice. We have the Muscle Band equipped instead of the Choice Band, so that when the Alakazam comes out next, we can swap our moves up to the Stab Return, one-shotting the Alakazam. Out next is Magmortar. It too falls to a Stab Return. We do activate its Flame Body ability, burning us and cutting our attack, but Mongoose just KO'd 3 of his Pokemon. Gengar threatens with Focus Blast, so it's a swap into 3D as Focus Blast connects, doing massive damage, but never KOing us because of a held Focus Sash. We can KO with a Specs boosted Psychic from there, and out next is going to be his Kingdra, which I don't have a great matchup against. I decide to bring Cat in, Unfortunately for me, Cat is not as bulky as I would like it to be, taking well over half of its health from a Surf. We can do a little bit of chip with Fake Out, and then we need to swap something else in, so I decided to bring in Bulldog. Bulldog tanks the Surf much better. We can survive a low roll and a non-crit, but Kingdra goes for a Dragon Pulse, dropping us to 8 HP before return. Doesn't KO. Well, it's a swap into Bird there, who can tank the Dragon Pulse much nicer, and then go for a U-turn to KO the Kingdra, and also bring 3D back in at the end of the battle, or the end of the turn rather, so that we're set up with a Choice Specs Ice Beam for the Meganium. It's a good little plan, a bit risky, but it pays off as we one-shot the Meganium, and we never have to see our rival again. Misty leads with a Politoed that has Drizzle, setting up a permanent rain. For that reason, we taunt 3D Thunder. We can outspeed and one-shot most of her Pokemon. It's pretty nice little strategy, I thought, using her rain setup against her. The Politoed and the Lapras go down to a single Thunder, and out next is going to be Starmie that is going to fall as well. The hitch in the plan is her Volt-absorbing Lantern that is going to come out next. Can't use Thunder against it, we're locked in because of Choice Specs, we're going to have to swap out. Now my plan was to bring in Bear, but I had moved the team around just a little bit, so I brought in Bird. This was a huge mistake, as an electric type move would have definitely taken us out, seeing how much Surf did there. We U-turn out, that was a very risky bit there, and we bring Bear in. Bear has more firepower than Bulldog, ensuring that we can KO the Lantern with a Choice Scarf Earthquake. Bulldog would have done the same thing, but we don't have the Choice Scarf on it. The last two Pokemon are going to be able to be taken out from Thunder, so it's a swap back into 3D on the Vaporeon, which hits a nasty, nasty Surf to 20 HP. Ugh, that was 3 crits that we risked. But we're never punished, as we take out the Vaporeon with a nice Thunder. Golduck is her last Pokemon, and it too falls to a Thunder, winning us the second Kanto Gym Badge. Though Lieutenant Surge has a completely different team than his Heart Gold Soul Silver counterpart, with the Choice Scarf and Earthquake, we can outspeed and one-shot his entire team. The only thing to note here is Electivire has been changed from an electric type to an electric fighting type. We still outspeed it. Bulldog would have done just as well here, but Bear ensures that a couple of ranges hit. Now, whilst we take out the rest of Surge's Pokemon, if you guys are enjoying the video, you know the routine at this point, right? Leave a like, leave a comment, consider subscribing. As a matter of fact, if you keep coming back each and every week, leave something simple. Leave an exclamation point or hashtag Zap Weekly. It doesn't take much, but it means a lot. Check to see if you're subscribed. Hit the notification bell so you get notified when these videos go out. They go out every Sunday at noon. And of course, if you want to see them a day early, you can become a channel member to get them on Saturdays at noon. Thank you guys for the continued support. Moving on. Being forced through Rock Tunnel is pretty cool. There was a guy blocking the door, and after we beat Surge, he moved. We didn't get too lost coming through here, and it's not very often that we see this side of Rock Tunnel coming into Lavender Town. I thought this was pretty neat. I don't really want to battle any more trainers, so we're just going to pop in here, get our expansion card for our radio, and continue on. I do believe we've got to head south the long way around to Fuchsia. That is the linear progression for the next portion of this storyline. And once we're in Fuchsia, we'll notice a bunch of Shelder and Cloyster running about. We talk to Janine, and we have to battle the Cloysters to clear up the problem here. Don't understand the storyline portion of this, but it is pretty neat to have added story, things that we can do. This has been quite the journey to get to Fuchsia. The Cloyster in the Pokemon Center is a forced shiny. That's pretty neat. We should put that nugget of knowledge in the back of our heads for if we ever do an ice or water type mono challenge of Storm Silver. It is really nice to see Janine with a higher level cap, and also she's got a pretty nice diverse team. However, with the choice specs and extra sensory here on Bird, we should be able to one-shot most of her team. I would love to run Psychic, but the TM that we can get our hands on, of course, is in Saffron, and I gave the other TM to 3D. Saffron is locked down because of the power outage, and then when you turn the power back on, the gate guards tell you they're recovering from a power outage. Until we beat Erica, we can't get into Saffron. Now after the Quillfish goes down, Drapion comes out, which is completely immune, so we're going to have to swap, and I bring in Bulldog. We take a crunch on the swap in very nicely, due in part to the Intimidate, and then with the Choice Scarf we can ensure an outspeed to two-shot the Drapion with Earthquake. We tank another crunch, but we were never dead to a crit there, and Drapion goes down. Our last Pokemon is going to be Venomoth, that is a bug psychic type in this game, so rather than swapping back into Bird, we swap into Bird. Psychic does a massive amount of damage, proving once again that Bird is not very bulky on the special side, and we risked a crit there, but we go unpunished as we take out the Venomoth. We're now forced to go up Cycling Road. Luckily, we have speed up, or this would be excruciatingly painful. This is kind of neat that it forces us through Route 12 down to Route 15 to Fuchsia, take on Janine, and then we have to go up Cycling Road to Celadon. Just awesome. It's a little annoying, but I enjoy it. Now, Erica's got a pretty nice little team as well. Obviously, everybody's team has been redone, but 3D with Ice Beam and the choice specs, we outspeeded one-shot her entire team. There's nothing here that's going to throw us for a loop. If we hadn't gotten the Jumpluff one-shot, it would have set up Sunny Day, and some of these Pokemon would have outsped with Chlorophyll, and it would have been a little bit different of a story. No matter, Erica goes down just as easy as her Heart Gold Soul Silver counterpart, and we can move on to the next gym. This video is going to be relatively short in comparison to other videos, but trust me when I say it took an immense amount of time to get through this Kanto section. We're breezing through it relatively quick in the video, but this was hours spent. We've had some pretty easy gym leaders since Misty, but Sabrina is not. Her Gallade is very scary. We flinch it with a fake out. Steadfast doesn't mean anything because the cat still outspeeds to take it out with a return. Medicham is equally as scary, so we swap into Bird for the Intimidate, which means we should live the high jump kick. Ooh, if it had crit, never mind. High jump kick miss it means it hurts itself, and then a fly takes it out from there, and that is two major threats on her team defeated. One more still to go. A U-turn on the Mr. Mime doesn't quite KO it, but it does allow us to bring the cat back in to tank a Psychic that again risked a critical hit. No matter, a fake out takes out the Mr. Mime, and we are in perfect position as she sends out the scariest Pokemon on her team, Wobbuffet. We are going to put this thing to sleep, and we are going to try to play around Counter and Destiny Bond. What I should have done here is done a Shadow Claw and then just clicked Hypnosis, because this thing wakes up, but it goes for Mirror Coat. We were very lucky there. I should just click Hypnosis after the guaranteed turn of sleep. A full restore from Sabrina is a little annoying as we're going for Hypnosis, which we missed twice. Mirror Coat, of course, misses, and then we finally put it back to sleep. I swapped to Return to see what kind of damage it would do. Does about the same as Shadow Claw, honestly. We take it low with a Shadow Claw, Wobbuffet stays asleep, and we take it out with one more. That is the biggest threat on Sabrina's team done. Alakazam is outsped in one shot, obviously, with a Stab Return, and her last Pokemon is a Hypno. I don't know if I can one-shot this thing, and being that we've risked a few things in this battle, I'm going to swap into 3D, as Hypno sets up a very scary, nasty blot. A Stab Tri-Attack does massive damage, but it doesn't quite take out the Hypno, but Sabrina throws with a nasty plot. Perfect. Full Restore is fine. She's in a heal lock now. It doesn't matter because we outspeed, so we can easily two-shot this thing. Or get a higher roll on Tri-Attack, whatever happens first. Now, Blaine has quite the formidable team here, but Bear with the Choice Scarf and Earthquake, we can do some serious damage. We had to crawl through Seafoam Islands to get here, so healing these guys up before we got into this battle was not great. It's a pivot into Bird to shake off the Intimidate from the Arcanine. A Flare Blitz does massive damage and some recoil back, and then we just U-turn out, which gets a crit that doesn't really matter, and we're going to bring Bear back in. I was hoping to get a Bidoof or a Bibarel at one point, but at the Lake of Rage, where I had an opportunity to catch one, we caught a Giraffe Rig. Lanoon is on the team Ferret that we caught early on because it has Surf, and I figured it would be good to have on the team, fully trained up as this battle is intense. Ninetales having Drought, some of these Pokemon then having Solar Beam that is now one turn, the White Herb that we saw on Arcanine, as well as the Camerupt that's going to come out. There's a lot to play around here. It's a big one-shot sweep though from Bear through the Magmortar. The only Pokemon we're not going to one-shot is of course going to be the Camerupt. Now I'm locked into Earthquake here, so I can't switch up my moves. This is a very unfortunate position to be in. The fortunate thing is Camerupt misses that sun-boosted Overheat that I think might have actually taken Bear out. Camerupt is in a heal lock with some full restores, but we are quickly running out of power points of all things, so one more full restore and one more Earthquake from Bear, I now struggle, quite literally. I'm not going to stay in and go for struggle strats as I believe Blaine has another healing item, so we're going to swap into Ferret here. Blaine does use a full restore. I don't know what to do here. Surf's not going to do much, so I just go for a Strength, which is a rock-type move in this game, and then we get blasted with an Overheat, and the special attack drop is cured off with a held White Herb. Yeah, that sucked. But we can bring in Bulldog. Losing our Surf Pokemon is no big deal. We can then fire off Earthquakes from Bulldog to eventually take out the Camerupt. No problem. Now, Blue is typically the biggest threat here in Kanto, and that is no different here. It took a lot of time to plan for this battle. Let's see how it goes. Bear leads out with a Guts-boosted Choice Scarf Earthquake to one-shot the Nidoqueen to avoid any spike shenanigans that it likes to set up. The next Pokemon out is the scariest one on his team, his No-Guard Machamp. What we're going to do here is we're going to swap into Bird, get the Intimidate off, and survive a Dynamic Punch. The Force Confusion is cured off with a Person Berry, and then I taught Brave Bird, because we can learn that move, to one-shot the Machamp. If we had used Fly, it would have hit us with a No-Guard Stone Edge and killed us whilst in the sky. Tyranitar comes out next and sets up the Sandstorm, but we just U-turn out. It's a super effective move and it actually does a decent amount of damage. We can then bring in Bulldog. I was thinking about bringing in Mongoose for just a second, but Bulldog comes in, getting that Intimidate to lower Stone Edge's attack, even though it still does a massive amount of damage, and then a quad super effective Brick Break will take out the Tyranitar. That's a huge threat on his team gone. Such a beastly Pokemon. Next out is Rhyperior. We cannot one-shot this thing with Brick Break, so it's a swap back into Bear on a Thunderfang that does a decent little bit of damage, and then we get chipped from the Sandstorm and our burn. Earthquake then takes out the Rhyperior because of our Guts. Very nice. This Pokemon has proved to be irreplaceable on the team now. The critical hit did not matter, by the way. Gyarados then comes out and it's a swap into 3D here. 3D just avoids the Aqua Tail on the swap in and can fire off the retaught Thunderbolt that is quad super effective. 3D is holding the Wise Glasses, not the Choice Specs, so that when his last Pokemon Executor comes out, we can switch our moves to Ice Beam, and we should be able to one-shot this thing, defeating Blue and winning the 8th and final Kanto Gym Badge. Upon defeating Blue, we of course get the HM for Rock Climb from Professor Oak, allowing us to get to the top of Mount Silver to battle Red. The other thing that is unlocked for us is a bunch of legendary stuff, like the Viridian Forest that was locked down. Mew can be found in here, and that is a neat little addition to the game. As a matter of fact, Generation 1 through Generation 4, all legendaries can be found. As we mentioned before, the ultimate goal of this game is to catch all of the Pokemon and then eventually Arceus. Now on the Cinnabar Islands, there is an item that spawns here. Now that we have Rock Climb, we can get this, and this unlocks Heatran. All of the different legendaries can be battled and defeated. All you have to do is leave the room or leave the area, come back, and that Pokemon will respawn. I think that's a nice addition, instead of having to beat the Elite Four to respawn them. All of the typical legendaries in this game, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, are spawnable in their normal locations. I think Moltres is changed, but other than that, we have to spawn in things like Heatran. We can go back to our house in New Bark, go upstairs and sleep in our bed, which is something you never do. Once we wake up from that sleep, it'll say we had a terrible nightmare and couldn't sleep. This unlocks Cresselia in Mount Moon, so we can head back there and catch that. Once you catch her, you can get Darkrai, Shaman. They're all available. We're, of course, not going to do the legendary hunts as we are trying to beat a monotype Nuzlocke, but it's a neat little addition. time to head to Mount Silver and take on Red. There's still a bunch of stuff that we could do in Kanto, but we train up the team and we head to the top of Mount Silver to take on Red. Now I'm going to tell you guys right now as the battle starts out, I make some huge misplays in this, and there are definitely things I wish I could have done different, but hindsight is always 20/20. The Choice Scarf with Earthquake one-shots the Pikachu. That Pokemon is actually deadly with Thunder and the held Light Ball. Because of the Choice Scarf, we're locked into Earthquake, so we swap into Bulldog. Bulldog needs to avoid 2 Focus Blast, otherwise it goes down. It avoids the first one, we don't outspeed, and we don't avoid the second one, so Bulldog ultimately goes down. That wasn't a misplay, that was always the plan there. Bulldog was the backup. Now we can bring Bear back in with the Choice Scarf, outspeed, and KO with a Stone Edge. If a Stone Edge would have missed there, that would have been pretty detrimental as well, but nonetheless we make it through. Blastoise comes out next, so we're going to bring in Mongoose. We haven't seen Mongoose in a minute, and this has been an amazing Pokemon. We get hit with a Fake Out on the swap in that gets a crit, that's annoying. But then we can fire off a Thunder Punch with the Muscle Band doing massive damage. We don't one-shot, unfortunately, and then Hydro Pump connects, taking out Mongoose. Well, I didn't know that was going to happen. We can then bring in 3D, and here's where things could have gone a little bit different. Red is going to use a full restore, and I have retaught Thunderbolt, which is going to do massive damage. I'm not really worried about the Blastoise at this point. I should have taught Blizzard to 3D for this battle for the Venusaur that's going to come out next. But I digress. Another Thunderbolt takes out the Blastoise, and I don't know how many full restores Red has, but I know he's got a few more, and things get very, very interesting. As the Venusaur comes out, I decide to just rip a nasty Psychic that takes Venusaur pretty low, and it sets up Swords Dance. Okay, Red's throwing the battle at this point. Chip puts it in healing range, so Red uses another full restore, and then we rip an Ice Beam that does about the same amount of damage. Maybe just a little bit more, it doesn't really matter. We take a little bit more Chip, and then Ice Beam finally takes out the Venusaur. We're getting down to the wire here, as Red only has a couple more Pokemon. Next down is Espeon. I don't want to swap anything into this Pokemon's nasty Psychic, so we go for a Tri-Attack. Tri-Attack does massive damage, and then he rips a Psychic that takes us down to 34 HP. We both survive the Chip from Hail, and Red uses another full restore. We fire off another Tri-Attack to take this thing low, but the Chip is going to KO us. We get the Burn, a Synchronize. Hail takes us out. Hail doesn't take the Espeon out, but the Burn does. That is not at all how I thought that was going to go, and we lose another Pokemon. I bring in Bear because I know Snorlax is last out. We have the Choice Scarf, and we have Close Combat. We should be able to do massive damage to this Pokemon. So we're going to rip a nasty Close Combat, but unfortunately, it doesn't quite KO the Snorlax. So with the defense drop and a stab body slam, Bear survives on 2 HP, but the Hail Chip takes us out. Damn it. Bird swaps in, gets an Intimidate off, and Red has another full restore. How many does he have? I don't know. Money wins battles, that's all I'm saying. A Close Combat from Bird one-shots the Snorlax with the help of a critical hit, and we have defeated Kanto. Now I hope you guys enjoyed this slightly shorter video. I've messed that up so many times. You know, if maybe I wrote a script, things would be so much more polished, but it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Kanto, though this video was short, was very long. Not as long as it took us to get through the events of Johto, but I digress. It was a great run. I had a lot of fun. We did have some misplays at the very end there. No big deal. It happens. Hindsight is 20/20. I wish I could have done things different, but that is the beauty of the Nuzlocke. We made it through, and we defeated both regions in our first ever ROM hack. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I did have to break it up into 2 parts, but we spent an immense amount of time getting through this. The planning of some of these battles took hours. The plan for Blue took me just under 3 hours to come up with a strategy that I thought would work and lead us to a deathless victory. Those are the things that you guys don't see, and that's the reason that some of this had to be broke up. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, you know the routine. Leave a like, leave a comment, consider subscribing if you've made it this far into the video, and once again, I will see you on the next one.